They brought Baldy on again today to, I guess today is going to be when he goes to 4,000%. He said 1,000%. He said 400%. So now it should probably just be 4,000%.
Joining me now, the man himself,
yeah.
O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary. Kevin, you reminded me with that comment, smash heads into the wall. You reminded me of what Xi Jinping said, okay? When he was celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party, he said, anybody who gets in the way of China's reunification with Taiwan is going to get their head smashed to dust.
Yep.
Remember he said that? Is that where you got that?
It was ringing in my mind, Maria, that the rhetoric was just being raised, and I thought it would be a good comeback. But, at this point, we got to face reality here. China is not just a trade war. We have to figure out a way to finally fix the problems that have existed since 2000 when they joined the WTO. They've never abided.
See, this is what he's saying, right? This is what a lot of people are saying, is that this didn't start happening last week, right? It's been going on for a while.
By the rules and regulations ever. There's no mechanism by which you can dispute any kind of business issue, including IP theft. And it's a typical situation. I'll make it very simple for everybody to understand. You invest in innovation in the United States, and the product takes off, and as soon as it hits a run rate of 5 million annually, it gets knocked off in China, manufactured.
That seems like, it seems like an exploit, right? What the fuck?
They're reintroduced into the U.S. market at around 30 to 40% off because they don't have to recuperate any R&D. And sometimes the original innovating company goes bankrupt. I've kind of had enough of that now. I've been watching it. I've never been able to litigate there, and I can't even get access to their financial markets or even sell products there sometimes without having a partner that's 51%.
Yeah, and what he means by that is that in order to do business in China, you have to have a partner that is a company that is a Chinese company.
I want you to be aware of something, Maria, that I think
it's
people
a scam.
missed
It's a scam.
yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's 100% scam.
Atkins was approved. His nomination went through for head of the SEC. Then Senator Scott issued a letter, made it public yesterday, that he had asked this person to enforce the law about delisting Chinese companies that were not compliant with GAAP. They were given 3 years. Then the law was modified to give them 2 years. None of them were compliant. There's billions of dollars trading this morning.
So this is a huge factor, right? Because GAAP is how people decide the value of a company and what a company's financials are. Because it's literally the way that you do accounting. That's massive.
That I think Chinese companies that are not compliant, they're going to get delisted. I think this new sheriff at the SEC isn't going to mess around. And I think this is important to continue the pressure on China to come to the table.
Yeah, it's a great point because I asked Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this very question yesterday. Look, Kevin, we talk about this all the time. We've got all these companies, Chinese companies, trading on U.S. exchanges. Some of them have already been sanctioned. Some of them have already been put on certain lists, blacklists or whatever in the U.S. And they're still trading on U.S. exchanges and, enabling or allowing U.S. investors to buy these stocks and, in effect, fund the expansion of our number one adversary. So I'm wondering how far they're going to go. Do we have that Scott Bessent soundbite? Because I went and I asked the Treasury Secretary about that and, to see how tough they could be, because that's an economic lever that people have been afraid to pull. I don't know about this administration, but most administrations are afraid to pull that lever. China will be very upset. Here's my conversation yesterday with Scott Bessent, on Wednesday, when I asked him this very question. Watch this, Kevin. How would you assess the Chinese economy right now?
They were in a recession/depression due to a real estate collapse that had a real estate bubble that is deflating. That had been going on for years, and the economy was in terrible shape. So again, they're going to go from bad to terrible, and that which is unsustainable will be unsustainable. The other thing that the Chinese should not do is try to devalue their way out of this, because back to our European friends, our Japanese allies.
Smart. Yeah, I think a lot of people respect him.
Our Korean allies, the Vietnamese. If China starts devaluing, then that is a tax on the rest of the world, and everyone will have to keep raising their tariffs to offset the devaluation.
Yeah.
So I would urge them not to do that and to come to the table.
How far are you willing to take this in terms of this soft war with China? We've got Chinese stocks.
I think they're going to go all the way. Honestly, I feel like Trump is going to go all the way with this. Because, like, again, like, you know, there's, like, the Chinese culture of, like, saving face, etc. people talk about. Well, I feel like Trump is kind of the same way. I don't think he's going to back down with this at all. I voted for this, yeah. And I think also there's a huge contingency of his base that realize that, yeah, this is something that is... Like, basically, backing down from this is pretty much agreeing to continue being taken advantage of. I think that's the way that a lot of people see it.
Trading on U.S. exchanges, you know, U.S. investors are buying those stocks, and that's helping China fund its military. Let's face it. Are you willing to go that far to remove Chinese stocks from U.S. exchanges?
Well, Maria, I think everything's on the table. We are putting in process
they would 100% do that.
For,
by the way,
high value security-related goods. We are talking about the export capital controls in terms of, you know, as you said, a blacklist of things that U.S. Whether pension funds, endowments, investors should not be investing in to fund the Chinese military machine. So, but that'll be President Trump's decision.
So what do you think about that, Kevin? I'm so glad you brought up the confirmation of Paul Atkins. That is a key point. I agree with you.
Well, here's my challenge to the administration. I'm an investor. I take companies public on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. I pay millions of dollars each year in compliance. I have no choice but to be compliant and transparent and abide by GAAP. And right beside me, issuing shares without any guidance at all, are Chinese companies. I'm competing.
I don't see how somebody can look at that and see that it's not rigged. I don't. I feel like that's so obviously fucking rigged. Really? It's not fair. Yeah, it's the same thing I said about, like, the hiring illegal immigrants. If you have a company that's hiring illegal immigrants and a company that's not, all other things equal, the company that's hiring the illegals is going to be able to sell at a lower price and make more money than you. That's not fair. Yeah, it's bad faith arguments. It's obviously rigged and bullshit. Yeah, of course. Rigged or designed? Probably a little bit of both. Let's be honest.
For that dollar. I'm investing in our markets and being compliant, and my Chinese competitor, same bank I'm using, is going to institutions the same day on a roadshow and raising money for what's called a shadow share. It's not even a real share. They don't even have any rights. And they're taking my dollar. They're taking my dollar. So I'm putting up my hand saying, wait a minute, just follow the law. Delist these companies, make them be compliant like I am.
Yeah, I don't think this is that unreasonable. Like, I don't, am I crazy for thinking this? That it's not that unreasonable to want them to come to the table a little bit and make sure that we can come have an agreement on this. Like, this isn't insane. I mean, I'm not asking that they, like, they give up everything and they have to, like, give us all their money or anything. This isn't anything that's crazy. Just play by the fucking rules.
I speak on behalf of every American investor. Enough is enough. And I don't know why this is going on. I'm only asking the new chair, uphold the law. Yeah. Just uphold the law. That's it. So I think I know why it's going on.
I know why it's going on. It's going on because Wall Street firms make money on it. Okay? That's why it's going on. Because they want to make money selling these stocks to the public. And they want to make money raising money for Chinese companies. What else?
I think that's definitely it. And I think there's a lot of messaging. This is, I feel like the fact that a lot of, there's like a lot of Democrats that are like falling off on the same side as China. I think that like you always have like the traditional everyday, you know, like America bad, like rhetoric, right? There's definitely that. But there's also another really big component of it is that I think that the Democratic Party has been completely taken over by large interests and like large money interests. And like the party works in the best interest of these massive companies under the, illusion of it working for minorities or underrepresented groups or developing countries. But the fact is that these companies are playing these people for fools and making them think that they're voting for like helping this country, but what they're really voting for is new forms of slave labor and new ways for these companies to increase their profits. That's what I think has happened. And I think that they've completely infiltrated and they've turned a lot of these economic policies that are actually detrimental to Americans into these like weird ethnic, like social issues that has convinced people to vote against their best interests. Now, I think that's what's happened. And it's been happening, I think, for 15 years.
What else is it going on? That's how it's going on Wall Street.
Listen, I appreciate that, Maria, and I use those banks, and many of those people I call friends, but they can't.
Keep in mind, by the way, everybody does this. It's not like Democrats have a monopoly on this, but I think right now it's become more and more evident. And I think that also what made it extremely evident is during COVID and BLM, when every single company sided with them and every single company tried to enact unilateral like messaging that said, like you have to do X, Y, and Z for COVID, like, like BLM is good, like all of this stuff. They all said the exact same stuff. I think the reason why is because they're trying to take advantage of these people that are emotionally driven by causes that are sometimes good causes, but take advantage of those causes and then utilize those groups of people to vote for things that are actually financially beneficial for the companies. That's what I think's happening.
Can't do this anymore because they're going to have to also abide by the law. All of this softness, I don't know why Gensler didn't pursue this. My estimation, as of this morning, somewhere between $500 to $700 billion worth of market capitalization that should be delisted, taken off the exchanges.
Wow.
Further pressure on the Chinese to come to the table.
Yeah, so Chinese Communist Party leadership want to get tough with President Trump. I wouldn't recommend it, okay? There's a lot to lose here for the Chinese leadership, a lot to lose. Meanwhile, let's talk about TikTok. The deal for TikTok to divest U.S. operations to an American company. Currently on hold, China pausing the process in response to the U.S. tariffs. President Trump told reporters yesterday the deal is still on the table, though. Watch.
Where does the TikTok deal stand, given what we've seen, the tariffs to China?
Moving along, but obviously I would say right now China's not exactly thrilled about signing it. We have a deal with some very good people, some very rich companies that would do a great job with it, but we're going to have to wait to see what.
I find there's also a bit of a self-report that TikTok, there was a lot of messaging about how TikTok wasn't owned by China. But if TikTok actually wasn't owned by China, why is China exercising oversight on the sale of TikTok? Isn't that interesting? Because if it's actually in Singapore and it's not related to the Chinese government, why is China involved in this at all? It's a psyop weapon? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, I mean, I see this and what the fuck? Only an idiot thinks that China owns all their companies. Isn't the U.S. doing the same? Is the U.S. doing the same? I don't know what you mean by that.
What's going to happen with China? So
Is the president still on the table?
no, it's on the table very much. I think China's going to want to do it, actually.
So, Kevin, the CCP is going to use whatever it can to push back on tariffs.
Well, there's further definition on the TikTok deal. And for some of us that were in the syndicates that were looking at buying and renting or leasing the algorithm and keeping TikTok the way it is past the 75 days, those hopes have been dashed. That was done yesterday when Senator Cotton, along with Scott, said, look, and he went public. I was attending a working lunch of senators 2 days ago in Washington, same day of the hearings on China. And the question came up. It was just an informal session, and Senator Cotton got up and said, no, I'm not going to allow any American company to do business with the Communist Party of China, and they are not getting anywhere near that algorithm into an American platform. So the idea
that this is the thing, is like, I feel like it can escalate in so many other ways that are like pretty fucking extreme. Yeah, I do. I think it's going to go crazy.
can buy TikTok now and somehow have some arrangement around the algorithm, that's dead. And that's just not going to happen because you're going to get such pushback from the lawmakers and also the Supreme Court, the 9-0 order. So that path has been shut off. And now we're going to have to figure out how do we buy this thing? And we'll probably have to rewrite the entire algorithm, which, by the way, is not that hard anymore. But that, Senator Cotton, he went public with that 3 hours later. It's out there now. He said the same thing publicly. He's not a fan of the Chinese algorithm. No. He considers it weapons-grade spyware, and he's made it known that.
Well, that's not the algorithm. That's a totally different thing. I mean, the algorithm is what tells you what videos to watch. The spyware is like their control and like permissions in the phone. I feel like these are kind of two different things.
He knows China better than most, so he knows exactly what their tactics are. Kevin, it's great to see you. And by the way, if you want to know more about all those Chinese stocks trading on U.S. exchanges, I did a whole deep dive in it in our special on Fox Nation, Underwriting the Enemy. It is streaming now. Check it out. Underwriting the Enemy Season 2 is up at Fox Nation, streaming now. Stay with us. Kevin, good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm going to be honest, like, you must understand how the algorithm affects propaganda delivery and narrative manipulation. I don't like the idea that the algorithm is a problem because I think that the implication of that is that people can't think for themselves. So, like, I understand, like, yeah, the algorithm is bad and, like, everything, but I think the question you really should be asking yourself is that why is it that a lot of young people here in the U.S., most of them can't? People can't think? Well, isn't that really the problem, though, right? I mean, because if you're so afraid, this is the problem, is that if you're so afraid of messaging that makes your country look bad, that you have to censor it and remove it systematically, I don't think that that's that much different than what China and Russia do with censorship as well, because you're effectively doing the exact same thing, and I don't like that. I don't like the direction of that. I don't like the implications of that. I'm very much not a fan of that at all. So when I see this happen and people are talking about, oh yeah, well, we need to change these algorithms, you shouldn't be able to have these algorithms, I think that the real question is that why is this messaging so powerful, and why is it convincing people to go against maybe their own best interests, but at least against their country, right? Why is the reason? And I think you figure that out, and that's the real problem, not the TikTok algorithm. So the algorithm propaganda any different than grooming? Is the algorithm propaganda any different than grooming? Yeah, it's very different than grooming. Grooming's done on a personal level to a child, and it's like for a sexual thing, right? It's completely different. Yeah, it's like under that logic, you would say that school is grooming. And so I think that, like, when you paint with such a broad brush, not only do you devalue the evil act that is, but at the same time, you also make it impossible to identify what the bad actors are. And I think it's just people that are weaponizing the emotional weight of a word in order to negatively affect somebody, right? School is grooming? Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like, that's the way that I see it. And, I'm hoping that, that's what happens, right? And since no one knows the algorithm, it probably uses advanced AI. Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, all kinds of algorithms and everything uses AI now. I mean, I don't really think is it really that big of a surprise? I think that's how it is all the time now.